And I am telling you, it's embarrassing, period. Do you know how many women in loving relationships have messaged me to be like, hey, I love my man down. This is still embarrassing. It's still embarrassing. And I know it's not your fault. It's the men's fault. Collectively, the way men have behaved in romantic relationships it is nothing short of terrorism. It is nothing short of emotional terrorism.
If someone so much as says my boyfriend on social media, they're muted. There's nothing I hate more than following someone for fun only for their content to become my boyfriendified suddenly. Is having a boyfriend embarrassing? The Vogue article by Chantel Joseph continues. This is probably because for so long it felt like we were living in what one of my favorite Substackers calls boyfriend land, a world where women's online identities centered around the lives of their partners, a situation rarely seen reversed. Women were rewarded for their ability to find and keep a man with elevated social status and praise. It became even more suffocating when this could be leveraged on social media for engagement and, if you were serious enough, financial gain.
There was a really interesting point that came across both people in relationships and single people, and this idea that like being in a relationship with a man and showcasing it to the world in and of itself was an embarrassing thing to do. And that's what I really wanted to get into. There was this idea of there not being a solidarity with other women. There was this idea of like a relationship just by default being something that rendered you quite uncool. I spoke about this podcast I came across where they were talking about, is it lame to have a boyfriend? And they say, you know, when I meet a girl and she has a boyfriend, I automatically just kind of put her in a box or in a category, and I just don't feel as inspired or engaged by her. And then when someone doesn't, I feel like they have so much life and prospect and they are just entertaining and fun, and I kind of feel empowered by their individualism. But interestingly, the girls talking about this on the podcast, agreeing with this idea that like girls without boyfriends are cool, are also in relationships themselves.
In an age where young ladies are not only demanding that guys lead with their wallet before they consummate any kind of label on their relationship, they also want to show off the things that were purchased with said wallet on Instagram or social media. But then comes this new caveat. However, more recently, there's been a pronounced shift in the way people showcase their relationships online. Far from fully hard-launching romantic partners, straight women are opting for subtler signs, a hand on the steering wheel, clinking glasses at dinner, or the back of someone's head. On the more confusing end, you have faces blurred out of wedding pictures or entire professionally edited videos with the fiancé conveniently cropped out of all shots. Women are obscuring their partner's face when they post, as if they want to erase the fact that they exist without actually not posting them.
If you have not read the British Vogue article, Is Having a Boyfriend Embarrassing? You need to run, not walk. There are days when I am a very proud subscriber of Vogue, and today is one of those days. This is actually a sociological and anthropological study that deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. This article is speaking to something that so many people talk about, but from the perspective of not focusing on singleness, but from the perspective of focusing on those who have a boyfriend. This is an incredibly well-researched article. This is not something that someone just came together to put forth as an opinion piece. This is a true viewpoint where it is predominantly driven by individuals that are in relationships talking about why they do not post their boyfriend.
So what gives? Are people embarrassed by their boyfriends now, or something more complicated going on? To me, it feels like the result of women wanting to straddle two worlds. One, where they can receive the social benefits of having a partner, but also not appear so boyfriend obsessed that they come across as quite culturally loserish. They want the prize and celebration of partnership, but understand the norminess of it. In other words, in an era of widespread hetero-fatalism, women don't want to be seen as being all about their man, but they also want the clout that comes from being partner.
Is having a boyfriend embarrassing? Apparently, yes. I'm sorry, I'm obsessed with this article. Shantae, you cooked a feast, my darling, because guess what? We're all having to confront the situation and talk about it, because honestly, it's terrible PR. It's terrible. The girlies be posting the back of the head, the hand, the shoulder, blurring faces, emoji over the faces. I hear it. I do hear it. We want to be loud in love, but everyone's scared that you post this man, he will shame you in the next 3 seconds. And I sit there and I think, you know, women engage in some of these men who we know are terrible prospects, but we think, okay, but this is the best of the worst. That's still not good. And whether you do it out of desperation, loneliness, insecurity, they could be either or altogether. I understand, but it's still not great, which is why I sit there and think this is why we're having conversations about, is having a boyfriend embarrassing, because we know that the prospects are so...
To us, these conversations might seem trivial, but then you have to consider that these modern women are now engaging in all types of permutations of new relationships. If you have a sugar daddy, do you show the things that he bought you on social media? What if he wants you to show him on your social media? What do you do about that? What if you have a situationship that you want to be more than that, and he tells you, don't put me on your social media? What happens if you're dating someone and the relationship ends and all of your friends are saying he was so good looking and you said all of these things about him? All of these things happening in this new kind of situationship swapping of partners situation where young ladies are saying things like, I was in a relationship for 12 years and I never once posted him or talked about him online. We broke up recently and I don't think I will ever post a man, says Nikki, 38. Even though I'm a romantic, I still feel like men will embarrass you even 12 years in. So claiming them feels so lame. At 38.
She wrote a whole article actually in British Vogue about why it's kind of embarrassing now to have a boyfriend. As somebody who's hiding the world from my boyfriend for numerous reasons, some of which she stated, if I'm honest. But now I have a partner who not just knows my favorite color, but like if I could... I recently couldn't find my belly button ring. He, on his own accord, scoured my room to look for it, right? Small things, but it's so healing because it's like, oh, the little things that I care about are worth attention. And that is healing for me.
The article continues. 2 New York-based influencers discuss whether having a boyfriend is lame now. Why does having a boyfriend feel Republican? Read a top comment. Boyfriends are out of style. They won't come back in until they start acting right. Having a boyfriend typically takes hits on a woman's aura, one commenter claimed. Funnily enough, both of these hosts have partners, which is something I often see online. Even partnered women will lament men and heterosexuality, partly in solidarity with other women, but also because it is now fundamentally uncool to be a quote-unquote boyfriend girl.
It's embarrassing to have a boyfriend. I've been reposting them posts and people are in my like DMs being like, oh, like, have you broken up with your boyfriend? No, I haven't broken up with my boyfriend, but I can still admit it's embarrassing to have a boyfriend. Like, they can embarrass you today, tomorrow, yesterday, and you'll just leave. Yeah, for sure. But it's still embarrassing. Like, it's embarrassing to have a boyfriend that could embarrass you. Anyway, but like that article is so funny and I just think it's so good. Like, hopefully it means as a generation we're gradually decentering men. Anyway, I just found it so funny. I've genuinely had people text me like, oh, like, are you and your man still together? I'm like, yeah, like, why wouldn't we? Like, what the hell? But then I realised, like, they're seeing these reposts and they're thinking, this babe does not rate her man.
It's not just in these women's imaginations. Audience are icked out by seeing too much boyfriend content, myself included. It seems, as indicated by my liberal use of the mute button. Her fellow Vogue contributor Stephanie Yabo goes on to admit, even if we're still together, I wouldn't post them here. There is something cringy and embarrassing about constantly posting your partner these days. She tells in adding that there is a part of me that would also feel guilty for sharing my partner constantly, especially when we know the dating landscape is really bad at the moment. I wouldn't want to be so boastful.
And it really summarizes a lot of the conversations that we've been having back and forth on my platform about the clip of the woman saying how we told her not to cook for him, not to clean up, and she got a man, she got her ring, right? And this article is really talking about how now it's really cringe to post about your man all the time and to present yourself as the type of woman who is male-centered and your content being about this relationship. Constantly presenting your life and the things that, and the money you have is such a turnoff. It's so gauche when people are struggling for you to post about all your money or whatever have you. And it's the same thing for women who are in relationships. If you follow me, I always say the only thing that stands in the way between you and finding the partner you want is not being fit, friendly, or feminine. It is luck. It is purely luck. Dating men often is a humiliation ritual.
Dating men often is a humiliation ritual.
You're seeing this new evolution of a situation where many young ladies who don't have a partner kind of maintain the presence of the sisterhood online, but the women that have their partner offline want to maintain their support of the sisterhood online, so they remove their partner's presence from their online feeds. Sophie Milner, a content creator, also experienced people unfollowing her when she shared a romantic relationship. This summer, a boy took me to Sicily. He paid for it, apparently. I posted about it on my subscribers section, and people replied saying things like, please don't get a boyfriend. She admits her content perhaps becomes less exciting when she's in a relationship. Being single gives you this ultimate freedom to say and do as you want. It is absolutely not every woman, but I do notice that we can become more beige and watered down online when in a relationship, myself included. So, keep your support for the sisterhood online and keep your healthy relationships offline. Welcome to 2025.
I was thinking so much about how it is very uncool to be a boyfriend girl. It is very uncool to be a my man person. And I spoke to both just people who are on social, but also content creators and influencers about what happens when they post their partners, right? A lot of them lose a lot of followers, especially if they were already single. And this idea that now you are someone's girlfriend and you're posting about this, it's something that people automatically disengage from. I do it too. If I follow someone because they, I don't know, post their outfits and all of a sudden it's their boyfriend every day, I'm just like mute. And obviously this has come from like just the empowerment of single women in general, but also just how the trajectory of men and women are going in completely opposite directions. And now we're having to look at heterosexuality with the political lens that we've looked at other sexualities. And we really have to evaluate, if we are a part of this thing, what does it mean? And so it's a really interesting piece. I think people should go and read it and should go and check it out. And I've also found the backlash to it. You know, I think a lot of women in relationships will say, well, you know, I hate all men apart from my man. He is a feminist and he is a this and he is a that, and I shouldn't feel embarrassed and blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, I think we have to be honest with ourselves. If people want to scream like, men are trash, I hate all men, men are trash, I hate all men, and then you shack up with a man and you're like, but not my man though, and someone says that's embarrassing, this is the culture that we've created and we fostered, right? And so I think a lot of people want to have their pie and eat it too. When there's nothing wrong with that, but I just think as we become a lot more critical of heterosexuality, I just think you can't sit comfortably in that anymore, which I personally think is a good thing, because it means that we are like deepening heterosexuality. We're thinking so much more critically about what it is we're engaging in, and we're being conscious about our choices, which I think is important. But yeah, go and read the piece. Sorry to drone on and on and on and on and on and on and on. Shout out to everyone that made it to the end of this video.
As Shantae Joseph just said, and she reiterates in her article, from my conversations, one thing is certain: the script is shifting. Being partnered doesn't affirm your womanhood anymore. It is no longer considered an achievement, and if anything, it's become more of a flex to pronounce yourself single. As straight women, we're confronting something that every other sexuality has had to contend with: a politicization of our identity. Heterosexuality has long been purposefully indefinable, so it is harder for those within it and outside of it to critique. However, as our traditional roles begin to crumble, maybe we're being forced to reevaluate our blind allegiance to heterosexuality.
So many people have messaged me to be like, my boyfriend is so special and unique, and he's so not like other boyfriends, and I'm not embarrassed, and I love my boyfriend, I love my man. Like, it's only embarrassing when, you know, he doesn't buy you flowers every day. I'm telling you, and I am telling you, it's embarrassing, period.
The article ends: obviously, there's no shame in falling in love, but there's also no shame in trying and failing to find it, or not trying at all. And as long as we're openly rethinking and criticizing heteronormativity, quote-unquote having a boyfriend will always remain a somewhat fragile, even contentious concept within public life. This is also happening alongside a wave of women reclaiming and romanticizing their single life. Where being single was once a cautionary tale, you'll end up a spinster with loads of cats, it is now becoming a desirable and coveted status. Another nail in the coffin of a centuries-old heterosexual fairy tale that never really benefited women to begin with. Sounds to me like a shot from feminism towards heteronormativity and trying to sustain a Western population directly.
Do you know how many women in loving relationships have messaged me to be like, hey, I love my man down, this is still embarrassing. It's still embarrassing. And I know it's not your fault. It's the men's fault. Collectively, the way men have behaved in romantic relationships is it is nothing short of terrorism. It is nothing short of emotional terrorism. Every time you come on this app, is some woman giving us a 62-part story about how a man was Prince Charming and then was the devil incarnate.
It goes without saying that it is not my place in Western society, of course, to tell black women what they choose to do with their political and social positions. We all have agency, and that is a freedom that the West affords us. But if you're going to make the decision to be the tip of the spear for feminism by essentially telling men, in this case Western men, we're going to do what we want, and we're going to go so far as to not even show our boyfriends on social media, It's one thing if it's the black community doing this, but if you're going to represent Western women as black women and say we're going to point our spear directly at what is ailing the West now, which is population decline, and say we're not going to change anything because you guys need to change your behavior, you cannot come to black men and say protect us from these men that want to be seen on social media when they're spending money on their girlfriends. Because that's essentially what's being advocated for here.
And this is just what we've normalized in dating. And we kind of go into dating being like, whoo, I wonder what breed of terror this person is going to reign on my life today. And from when that is your approach to dating, or for when that is the attitude around dating in the get-go, it just feels like being with a man is an incredibly volatile thing. You just don't know what's going to happen next. And the people around you don't know what's going to happen next. People keep being like, oh, well, why? How come when a man is with a woman, it's not embarrassing, but when a woman is with a man, it's because the men are embarrassing. Where men are societally, where they are politically, education-wise, you know, how they behave, the attitudes that we've normalized, this cannot run anymore. The madness that men are doing, both on a broader societal level, but also on an interpersonal level. The heterosexual romantic fantasy is crumbling. It is crumbling before our very eyes. And are we going to clamor to try and put together the chaos? Or are we going to think about something new? Imagine a different world. Imagine a different way our relationships can exist so they don't feel so oppressive. I just think we have continually rewarded men for the abysmal way they treat women. So yeah, having a boyfriend is a bit embarrassing because men are embarrassing because what are they doing?
Of course, we all know that one of the most cherished ideals of Western civilization is freedom of speech. So, of course, she has the right to make her points known. But the other thing that has to be considered here is that if you're going to be the tip of the spear for Western feminism pointed at, of all people, President Donald Trump, count me out of it. I am not trying to protect you against that because he has the power to make policy to make some of this argument go away, especially when guys are trying to start families in a Western civilization that needs families and children. You're going to stand on a pedestal and say that heteronormativity is an issue and that we need to find a new paradigm. It'd be one thing if these were some, I guess, Caucasian feminists, and we could just say as black people, this doesn't have anything to do with us. But if this is going to be a stance that black feminists are going to take, you got to take that one by yourself. I am not doing anything to put myself between you and your ideas and the leaders of the Western world because it's just a losing battle. It's not reading the temperature of the room. The West needs children. It needs families. It needs people to come together and stabilize things. And instead of saying that and arguing for that, what you're saying is, I don't even want to put my boyfriend on social media. What if the boyfriend you're talking about is someone that's working a very important job and he's in love with that woman and that woman basically wrings him out like a wet towel and throws him off in the dustbin? You don't think that that happens enough time and there's going to be some changes in policy? And what I fear the most is that these young ladies who are jumping up and down in support of this idea of not putting your boyfriends on social media are going to be seen as the new face of misandry, as black women. I can't tell them to not do this, but what I can warn them against is if you're going to look around for the people that are going to protect you when they're trying to make policy to make sure that this misandry doesn't end Western civilization, they're going to have something pointed at someone. And I'm sorry to say it, but it's honest. I'm not going to be standing between them and you trying to make points that are basically going to not sustain what they want to sustain. I'll keep it at that. Being the new face of misandry as black women, hope that works out for you. But I wouldn't do it. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment below. I'll catch you next video. Take care, guys.